in something like weightlifting, gives you the range of motion to ditch a snatch backwards if needs be. If you're stiff through your shoulder girdle and you swing a snatch, catch it with straps on, don't have the flexibility to get out the way, you're going to snap some shit up. And then motor control work. So this is probably more relevant for strongman. Next for weightlifting, and then probably least for powerlifting, due to motor control tends to be more for like change of direction, single leg control work, things like that. So an instance of powerlifting where it might be a problem is in a squat, where you bow inwards at the knee violently on the way up. This can be a predetermined risk factor for ACL injury in team sports, much less so in powerlifting, but it will put undue stress on the lateral structures of the knee, MCL, ACL, meniscus, cartilage. This can be due to stiff adductors, which might cause you to, as you lower, your knees will jar in because your stiff adductors are pulling them in. Lack of strength in the glute structures, so glute med especially. Its action is to push the knee out over the. It's a control lateral movement of the knee. So if your glute med's weak, you can go into other structures for the strength and extension. So process. Sound like I don't know what I'm talking about here, but you can overload things like your hamstrings, your lower back, to kind of get the force for extension out of the bottom of a squat. So drills that you might want to look at might be pistol squats, lunges, step ups, single leg, stiff leg deadlifts, landing drills. Probably not so much for strength sports, but these are things you can look at to see if there's any kind of movements that are not desirable that you currently have, and you can strengthen up the areas that are causing that problem. So going back to the knee bowing, you can use like clamshells, band work, to strengthen up the glute med, which should help with your knee control and stop you valgusing, which is coming in, which is not necessarily so much of a risk factor for a squat, but is more of a risk factor possibly for a clean, and definitely for something in strongman like in a loading race, like doing a cutting movement, like loading and then turning. And if you have like knee jarring, then you're putting yourself at you're putting much greater strains on your knee than you would do if you had good movement. So it's definitely something to look at. And then, which pretty much leads on to what we've just been talking about, lower level strengthening of weak areas. So to bring it to powerlifting, if your rotator cuffs are weak, or you bench in such a way that you overuse, so if you flare your elbows too much in a bench press, you can load up your rotator cuff at the front too much, and if it's weak, it can make it prone to be symptomatic and eventually fail. So like external rotations, internal rotations with a band or cable, sort of band work you see working on things like your serratus anterior, your lower traps, things that help with healthy scapula movement, can help to prevent other pathologies and other injury risks coming into play. So these are like little things like the diesel shoulder warm up, that these are the kind of routines that can help you with this sort of thing. Okay, so that's strategy 1, prevention. Hopefully not too boring. Strategy 2, fighting fires or maintenance. This is when you've either been training for a while, have some kind of weakness, or you have some kind of, like, you load to one side in a squat, say, and you overload the structures on one hip, and it's got to the point where you're symptomatic. So it's constantly stiff, it's chronically sore, it may be acutely sore in some movements. It's basically, you're aware of it being a problem. Shoulder would be a very common one in most of these sports, and strongman elbows can be a common one from overuse. So these are things you can do to make the symptoms not as impactful in your own training. So start off, the most obvious one, soft tissue work on the affected area. So things like foam rolling, massage, acupuncture, and active release. Obviously, foam rolling is the one you can do yourself. You can do it with a cricket ball, a foam roller, a Coke bottle full of water, your hands. You can get a partner to kind of get their thumb in on a sore area, basically just to release trigger points within an effect within the fascia of a muscle. And I don't want to go too much into that because it's not something I'm terribly skilled on. I just have a practical knowledge of it, as in having used it myself, on myself and others, to kind of deal with acute pain or chronic pain or a lack of range of motion in the joint. Is a very useful tool. So things like for massage, acupuncture, and active release, that's somewhere where you might want to go see a massage therapist, sports masseuse, or physiotherapy and help you out with that. If you have the funds to get massage or sports massage, I would heavily encourage you to do that rather than just doing foam rolling. Foam rolling is a good kind of management strategy, but if you can afford to go see someone else to do it, definitely go do it because it's much more useful. And then mobilization of problem joints. So things like dynamics, stretching, like leg swings, squats, lunges, sort of kind of things you see in a dynamic warm-up for most sports are useful to prepare for training. And then post-training, static stretching of problem areas, holding squat positions, like a loaded pause squat at the end of a squat session, try open up hips. These are all very useful tools to kind of mobilize an affected area. So if you have a problem in your hip, it's very likely that the muscle and tendon structures will seize up, causing a lack of range of motion, which can be painful in certain situations. And in training, definitely can lead you to overloading structures that you might want to. So if you're tight in one hip, you might favor the other hip, which could lead to something given away in the other hip. It's all very general and the way I'm talking. So I apologize if it's a bit airy-fairy. But if you get somewhere that's stiff, like a stiff shoulder joint in weightlifting, pre-mobilization of that joint so you can have good movement during the session, and then post-training, supplementary, static stretching, foam rolling, and massage can help to kind of some cases cure the problem, and in other cases stop it becoming an injury risk. And then increased recovery work, so like extra sleep, possibly after a heavy session, go to bed early, get 9-10 hours of good sleep. It can help with recovery a lot. That's kind of your primary recovery source, is your sleep. If you're not sleeping well, you're definitely more prone to overuse injury. Food, and get enough calories. If you're in a diet, so if you're cutting weight for competition, you're bodybuilding, and you're cutting weight, you've put yourself at more risk of injury, probably more due to a lack of attention, or you're drowsy, or you're not paying attention to what you're doing in a session, you lack energy, or for chronic injury, you're not getting enough protein, you're not getting enough calories to repair the tissues, and therefore you make yourself more prone to what we're talking about, overuse injury. Supplementation, possibly things like glucosamine, fish oils, glutamine are kind of banded around as supplements you can possibly take to help your recovery process. Certainly if you're deficient in calcium, if you're deficient in protein in your diet, supplementing those is an easy way, or vitamin D even has been shown to make you prone for some injury, bone injuries possibly, due to a lack of bone mineral density. So vitamin D, calcium, glucosamine, fish oils, things like that can help increase your chances of not getting injured. Certainly if you're deficient in vitamin D, calcium, or protein, those are things you might want to look at supplementing. And keep a food diary, something like Fit Day, or was it MyFitnessPal on Android and iPhone are great tools to kind of see. If you keep a detailed food diary, they'll show you what your vitamin deficiencies are, where you're overeating. Very good tool, you should use it. Doesn't take much effort. And then lastly, involvement of a professional, at least for consultation, will make this process much more fruitful. So if you're getting chronic issues in a shoulder or hip, going to see a physiotherapist to have a look at it, they can give you some management strategies, and they can also maybe give you some things that try to help cure your problem.